is going on, y'all? I feel like it has been a good little minute since I have done a YouTube live between preparing to take a fitness certification exam. I have just not been here in itself, but it is officially good to be back. Happy first of the month to those of you guys that are tuning in, whether you are catching this thing now or you're catching this thing on the replay. As you guys are coming in, as I always tell you guys, go ahead and tell God thank you and tell me one thing that you are grateful for. My only rule is you can't say thank you, God, for life. And you can't say thank you, God, for waking me, because I feel like those are everybody's go-tos. I will say that I am just grateful to have made it into a brand new month. But also, on the other side of things, Capone, no. But also on the other side of things, I will also say that I am just grateful for growth. Growth in my own life, growth emotionally, growth spiritually, and growth physically. And I'm also grateful for the grace that God gives. I feel like this has been a season where it's been very, very hard to not be hard on myself or even judgmental towards myself. And I feel like I've been in a place where God has been, teaching me that just because I don't see it doesn't mean that I have not grown. And so, as always, welcome to Daily Manna. We have a few changes that are going to be taking place. I will at some point post my live schedule here on YouTube for everybody that is interested, but we typically are going to go live every Monday through Friday at 12 noon. Hey, Miss Nicole. Hey, Visha. What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? Bono. But yeah, we will be going live at 12 noon every single day, Monday through Friday. You can catch us on TikTok every Monday through Friday at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And on Saturdays, you can find me on TikTok at 9 a.m. In the morning. But as always, as y'all are coming in, please be sure that you guys are hitting that thumbs up button. It helps the algorithm. If you have not shared this with somebody, please go ahead and share this. What's going on, my Yanni? As y'all can see by the title of today's message, today's daily manna is settling into the new. I'm going to say that again. Today's daily manna is about settling into the new. We always talk about the new thing that God is doing, the waiting phase before we get there, the journey to getting to the new thing. We talk about how it's hard to cross over, but nobody really prepares us for what it actually feels like when you've already crossed over and it is officially time to embrace the new beginning. I feel like I have been in a place, especially with today being the very first of the month, where, and this is kind of where this revelation stemmed from, where it's been a lot of changes that I've never had to embrace before. And it's been a lot of uncertainty about how is my life going to be affected by shifting with God in a particular way. And I feel like many times we have that feeling, especially if you've been in a struggle for a certain amount of time and God brings a change. Let's just say you believe in God for living arrangements. And let's just say prior to shifting into living arrangements, you struggle financially. Sometimes settling into the new looks like facing the fear of, I hope that I don't go backwards. I hope that this is not a mistake. I hope that this change doesn't set me back. And I feel like that is probably the number one thing that everyone battles with when we actually cross over into the new thing, is hoping that the change does not affect our life in a negative way. I think that we grow up in a world and in a society that basically teaches us to hate change. Many of us come from communities or even families where it's like the moment you start talking about change, nobody embraces change. I remember growing up and knowing that I wanted something different, knowing that I wanted, something different than everybody else, and knowing that in order to have that, I had to move a little bit differently. And I remember people's responses to me in that season, people feeling like, oh, that's too much change, or feeling like change will bring a negative outcome, right? We live in a world that basically teaches us how to move in a safe way, how to stick with what works, and to never change. But when we get into a place where we never change, we also never grow in God, and we never get all of the blessings that He meant for us to have. I pray that I'm making sense. Excuse me if y'all hear me sniffling. I am under the weather a little bit. But yeah, think about it. And so I feel like every part of, or every time I've had to cross over into the new, there's always been that level of uncertainty, but it's always been like an out of body experience actually settling into the new. I remember like when I first got like that first apartment fresh out of the wilderness. Now, mind you, I had been waiting for God to do this thing for 3.5 years, and I finally get it, and I'm actually in there. Do you not know I got in that apartment and couldn't sleep? Yeah. Do y'all know I got in that apartment and I absolutely could not sleep? And so the hardest part was getting acclimated to life without dysfunction, getting acclimated to life without, and I'm gonna be for real, that first month, it felt like an out of body experience because I felt like, am I being punked? Like, is something bad finna come out of the woodwork? Because I had grown up. Dysfunction was my normal. You understand what I'm saying? Dysfunction, struggling, dealing with the enemy, using my mom, like that was basically like the life that I had known for as long as I could remember. So like coming into this month, God shifted my hours. As I told y'all in the very beginning what the new hours are. And I told God this morning because I was feeling anxious. I don't know if change makes anybody else feel anxious, but change, and it's not necessarily change, but I feel like it's the moment after I know that I followed God that it just had me shook. Like, God, yes, I shifted, but like I'm like internally, like I'm freaking out on the inside. Because all I can think about is sometimes God introduces change when you feel like your life is already falling apart, or you feel like I'm already struggling and you want to bring this, and that, Oh, okay. Tell me I'm lying. And the biggest thing that I've been asking God is like, how am I going to like handle this plus this plus this? And so today, like I was very anxious about the changes. And I told God, during like my time with him, like, Lord, like I'm anxious because I've never had this kind of live schedule before. My life for as long as I've given it to Christ has been about, eating, breathing, sleeping, broadcasting. I don't know what to even do with where I feel. You know what God told me? The Lord says, stick with it long enough to see like the effects of the change that I'm bringing. And would I say that is fear of trust? I feel like that's not the right question, but I feel like it definitely is a fear, and it's not a fear of trust, but it's a lack of trust. I feel like it's a lack of faith, but it's also like a fear of like going backwards, or a fear of life just taking us under. A lot of times when God introduces change, a lot of times you're coming out of a season or out of a circumstance that made you feel like you were drowning. Give me some fire emojis if I'm making sense. Yeah. I'm going to say it again. A lot of times when you get like good change, it comes after like you've been fighting for your life. Fighting for your life to be okay. Fighting for your life to, make it out of a season. And so sometimes like you're still dealing with the residue of that struggle, and God says, here's change. I remember that first apartment getting, it's like the last rent was like late. I kid y'all not. It was so late that they put an eviction notice on my door. I had already paid first and last month's rent, but that was basically what happened. And I remember even after I paid rent, like God beginning to deal with me about moving. And the place that like he was highlighting, I started to have dreams where I could dream of this place. And in the dream, I could see what it looked like on the inside. And I remember like, finally like choosing to look, because I had like, okay, I got to give them a 2 months notice. But I remember like I'm looking online, and I found the apartment. And then when I looked at the cost tag of it, I told God, absolutely not. If I'm already struggling, why would you introduce change that is going to stress me out? There was even a portion throughout my journey where I told God, faith stresses me out. Every time I feel like I'm good, you bring another change, and that change just makes me feel like I'm not only stressed thin, but it makes me feel like at any given juncture, like I'm not gonna make it. Like some of y'all probably feel that way now, going through, different things in your life, different circumstances. I pray that I'm making sense. Absolutely, Daryl Johnson. I pray that I'm making sense. And so, like I used to tell God, like, this stressing me out. Like, I'm trying to get to a place where I'm comfortable, but faith will never let us get to a place where we're comfortable, because the moment where we're comfortable, there is really no need for God. I'll say that again. The moment where we're comfortable, there is really no need for God. And so every single time we get to a place where we are, about to be comfortable, or we feel like we're good, God will say, okay, level up, stretch. And I remember, like, that apartment, like, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that, Lord. Like, I don't want to do that. And I remember, like, because I didn't have much time, so it wasn't a long amount of time, but I remember, like, having that dream constantly. And then one day God said, like, oh man, I'm almost reliving it. He said, go and view it. So I remember, like, going to view it, me and my dog Bella. We rode down there and I went and viewed it. They only had one that was becoming available. They had one that was like above the leasing office. I knew that was a no-go. And then they had one that was like, it was the only one that they had left. And so I remember, like, setting it up, applying and everything else. But I had a fear of whether or not I was going to get approved. Because I had already come from a season, like, less than a year, where I had been struggling. It had been hard to get in anywhere. And I finally get an apartment and I got this one eviction on my report. Like, I'm worried. And my fear was, is this change going to make me lose the momentum that I've gained? Is this change that you're asking me to make, is it going to, like, put me back in the position that I don't want to be in? And so, like, that was like my fear. And I'm like, I just almost got evicted. The rent was like $600. I couldn't even pay that. And now you're asking me to, like, shift with you in another way. And the rent was like almost double. It was like $400, $500 more, probably about $600 more when you include, like, the lights and everything else. And so, like, that was like my fear. So even though I did it, I'm like, okay. And so the time for moving comes. The lady is like, oh, do you want to, move in a day early? Like, I kid y'all not. We got the U-Haul, packed everything up, and the U-Haul door would not close. I had so many, like, things going, not to mention that I didn't have all the money that I needed. And so I remember, like, trying to move into, like, that new place. And I'm like, Lord, it is a struggle just moving into a new place because I don't have all the money that I need. And I was stressed out. Because I'm like, I would have been okay if you would have just let me stay. And a lot of times we feel that way, like, God, I would have been okay had you just let me stay. But, fast forward to, like, this morning, I was feeling some kind of way. I was feeling anxious. I was feeling like, I don't know how this change is going to affect me. If last month was like this, what's going to happen in this area of my life? What about my needs? What about this? What about all these other things? And honestly, to be for real, God knows that there was a portion after, like, 2000, what year was that? 2022-ish, where, like, YouTube was just not what I wanted to do because I had a bad encounter with YouTube pouring out and not receiving anything, people not sowing or whatever the case may be. It just felt like business and ministry just took the greatest hit of them all. And so I strayed away from YouTube for a while. And so now that the change includes YouTube, I've been looking at God like, oh, is this going to set me back? And so today I was feeling anxious, and God told me, the Lord said, stick with the change long enough to see, like, the effects that it brings to your life. And even now he's reminding me of, like, people who work out, people who are on a weight loss journey, people who are just trying to be a healthier version of them. Like, you have to stick with it, even though you're sore, even you have to stick with it long enough to actually see change. If you quit prematurely after the first week, after the first day, like it's the equivalent of you not doing anything and you not following. And so God was telling me, like, our lives work the same exact way. When it comes down to embracing change, He's aware of the many different fears that we have, really the fear of going backwards, the fear of, of being taken out by life, by circumstances. And sometimes we feel like because God wasn't faithful, or sometimes we feel like He's barely faithful in struggle seasons or circumstances that don't feel good. A lot of times we carry that into a new season and we factor that into the change that He's asking us to make. So it's like if you feel like God has struggled to provide for you, struggled to open a door for you, and God is asking you to make a change, like that is weighing on your mind. The fact that it feels like, man, Lord, like, you didn't do it then. So is it going to be a struggle for me to get my needs met? That was like the whole thing that I was having with the apartments. Okay, God, I got in an apartment after 3.5 years. The last month rent was paid on time. All these times I had 1 month where I almost got evicted. And I'm like, you're asking me to make a leap into an even bigger place that costs more money. Like I feel like you barely came through when I was about to get evicted. Like, is this going to be the thing that pushes me over the edge and just knocks me all the way back down to square one? And I feel like a lot of times we have that fear because during the waiting phase, it's like we build ourselves up only for life or circumstances to push us back down. It seems like you make, I feel the Holy Spirit. It feels like you take 10 steps forward and you get knocked 20 steps back. Give me some fire emojis if I'm making sense. Yeah. Yes. Some of y'all going through it right now. And I'm going to say this. That's the number one thing that makes you not want to change. You be feeling like, man, I just got to a place where I was good. I just got to a place where it felt like life wasn't about to take me out, where I wasn't struggling. And now you're asking me to change in a way that I'm not sure I can sustain myself on this level. I barely made it on the level you're trying to bring me out of. How can I get to a place where like I'm good? Even like coming from like having like no car note to like having a car note, like in that season, I'm like, I ain't had a car note for all of these years, and now you want me to get a car? Like, can I pay this? Like, will I have enough? Or feeling like, man, I couldn't even pay the car that got repossessed. So how am I gonna handle that plus that? Like, a lot of times faith will have you feeling like you're in over your head. And I feel like that's what the changes of life brings to us. That feeling of feeling like, man, I am really, in over my head. And a lot of times we end up overthinking instead of just actually following Him. I'm going to say that again. A lot of times we end up overthinking instead of just following Him. And we're overthinking because we're trying to map out all the details to prevent a fall. We're trying to map out all the details to prevent going backwards. It's like puzzles, right? So like in 2020, I had this thing with like puzzles. There was a way to like pass the time. The world is shut down. Ain't nothing really open. You can go to the grocery store. You can go, get your food, get your gas, whatever the case may be. But one of the things that I started to do to pass the time during the day, I got puzzles. And I got 250-piece puzzles, 500-piece puzzles, 700-piece puzzles. It's like starting a puzzle and you're finally starting to see leeway and somebody just come and just knock your stuff down. It's maybe we can use Legos because people have gotten into like Lego building. If you guys are in it, can y'all do me a favor and hit the thumbs up? It's like building Legos and you feel like you're making progress. You feel like, whoo, I can finally see a little something, and you have a toddler or somebody, just come and just swipe. You're going to be pissed. You're going to feel like, man, I have to start all the way over now. It's different if it's like in the beginning phases, but a lot of times our life has felt like that. The process has felt like that. Like I build myself up to here where I think like I'm finna get my miracle. I think that I'm finna get it. And then something catastrophic happens that just tears all my progress to shreds. And so what happens in the process is now I have to work myself back up and build myself back up to getting to a certain place only to be knocked down again. So a lot of times we have that fear of, is the same thing about to happen? Like if I do what you asking me to do, am I going to be knocked down 10 million steps? And for a lot of times, the 10 million steps is, am I going to be knocked down to the place before I got the blessing that I currently have? Yeah. I drink some coffee today. A lot of times that is the fear. Hey, Samantha, am I going to be knocked back? Right? Because I remember what the struggle was like when I didn't have what I have at least now. And so a lot of times it seems like the biggest gamble embracing change because hold up now. You asking me to move away from this safety net. You go without a car for so long, or or let you go without living arrangements, let you go through homelessness, and you get an apartment. Getting that apartment, you be so grateful, even though you have your own fears in living in that apartment. And then God says, okay, move. I want you to go somewhere else. Like the only thing running through your mind is, am I going to be homeless again? And, is this change going to set me up to where I feel like I'm blocked in again or where I don't have again? Oh, okay. All you can think about are the many failures, the many things that did not go your way. Yeah. Yes. So I'm going to tell those of y'all that are battling this because I feel like we have reached a juncture of extreme change. And by change, I mean for many people, shifting into the new and settling into the new is the equivalent of shifting into the promise. I'm going to say that again. We are in a season of extreme change. And for a lot of us, this extreme change, shifting into the new, is the equivalent of shifting into the promises of God. And the devil is counting on many of us to become too afraid to follow, too fear-stricken to trust God, overthink to such a degree where all we see are the possible failures, but we don't see God's faithfulness, oh my God, how he's kept us, how he's had us. And his main goal in doing so, or the main tool in doing so, is to remind us of all the moments where we thought God was going to do it and he didn't do it. Man. Oh my God. And if he can't do that, what he tries to do is disqualify us by making us feel that doing it our own way, right? Doing what we feel is best instead of what God is telling us to do. Yeah. Because he knows that if fear won't do it, disobedience will. I'm going to say that again. He knows that if fear won't do it, disobedience will. That's why many of us coming even into the month of October experience like such a degree of just feeling like we wanted to rebel. Feeling like, okay, God, I've been following you. I've been doing it your way and I still don't have the blessing or I'm still struggling. The circumstances not shifted. And many of us battle. If that's you, just say that's me. Battle. I know I did. Battle with like continuing to follow God. Like, do I continue to follow God and potentially keep struggling? And then for a lot of us, following God intensified the struggle. It made it worse. Okay, God, I followed you financially. Surely I just knew my bills were going to be paid. Followed God. The bills, some bills got paid, a lot of them didn't. And then it's like coming into a new month, it's like, I got a whole lot more bills. You sure I want to, am I sure I want to keep following God? Like, can I handle more bills? And we're talking about the financial aspect of things because even though faith is heaven's currency, God understands that the devil oftentimes attacks us in the realm of the world's currency. The world's currency is money. I'm going to say that again. Yeah, we know that faith is heaven's currency, right? But the devil oftentimes attacks us in the currency of the world. So it's like the more faith you have, the more sometimes you feel like you're struggling financially. Yeah. And a lot of times it feels that way until the Lord actually brings you out. You're not by yourself, Miami. This was me. Looking at these bills, I'm like, you sure you want to change my schedule at a time like this? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? I got all these many different things like, shifting with God is scary. And all I could think about honestly was, God, the last time I shifted to focusing on growing YouTube, like the ministry, like you had me in the cave. Wasn't nobody coming. Wasn't nobody sewing. Wasn't anyone helping accomplish what I was struggling buying food. Struggling putting gas in the car. I felt like my voice didn't matter. It even got so bad to where I actually quit. And so you say, okay, God, you telling me to invest more, go back to, oh my God. Yeah. But I'm going to tell y'all what God told me last night. He will never withhold any good thing from our lives. I'm going to say it again. He will never withhold any good thing from our lives. He sees what we don't see. Say all of that to say, trust him. That's it. So if this was your word, can you just tell God thank you? If this was your word, can you just tell God thank you? To those of y'all that feel led to sow, I keep hearing the seed number 1111. That is the number that I hear. You may feel, if you feel led to sow a different number, sow differently. But that is all I have. Again, our new live schedule. Thank y'all moderators for posting how people can sow. You can find the ways in the description of every single video. We will be doing these YouTubes at 12 noon every single Monday through Friday. We're not doing the weekends, but Monday through Friday, we will be in this place. And, just stick with us. Just continue rocking with us. If you have not followed us, go ahead and follow us. Turn the notifications on. If you have not shifted over to TikTok and followed us over on TikTok, please go ahead and follow us on TikTok as well. I will be live there tonight at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you need prayer for anything, you can go to the website, thoughtsbyT.com, go to the contact us page and type in your prayer request in the contact us page. If you need to book a coaching session, you can do so. We even have the pay in 4 plans for those people who may not be able to afford the entire thing. That is it. At some point within the next month or so, I will be getting back into releasing t-shirts and stuff like that. So please be on the lookout for that. I love y'all. I am rooting for you guys. And so, yeah, till next time, y'all. Peace.